Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to pick number 13 of my favorite 30 guitar players of all time. It's the countdown we're doing each and every day here this month, September 2024. Our 30 favorite players. 30 favorites among all genres, across all genres. Very tough to do. So many great guitar players. I love guitar players, so this is probably the hardest month series that I've done to date, just because there's just so many to choose from, so many I love. I ultimately went with 30 who have kind of meant the most to me over a long span of time, most of my life. A lot of great players that I've discovered in more recent years, but because I don't have a long history with them, they don't quite make the cut. Most of them. And I, like I said, initially I thought I was going to do an honorable mentions list, but my honorable mentions list is absolutely enormous. So I may just pick like 5 or 10 on the last episode of the month and just say, hey, here's are the ones that it really pained me the most that didn't quite make my cut. So I'll probably do something like that. I guess we'll see, because my honorable mentions list is longer than the 30 list. So anyway, for today, pick number 13, an amazing player that has thrilled me since the very, very first time I heard the debut album of the band that he's mostly known for. And it was probably 40 years ago, thereabouts. And I remember saying, wow, listen to that dude. What is this music he's playing? And still to this day, he's in his early 80s, I believe, and he's still absolutely amazing. Let me bring to the stage here none other than Mr. John McLaughlin. Yes, indeed. One of the great fusion guitar players of all time. In the, for me, top 3 fusion player of all time. You're going to see the other two coming up very shortly here on my countdown. Yeah, McLaughlin is amazing. He was amazing back in the 60s. He was amazing in the 70s. He's continued to be amazing all the way to today. As you can see there, he's strictly playing Paul Reed Smith guitars these days, has been for a number of years. But early on, he was very much a Gibson player, played Les Pauls quite a bit. Also had a Gibson double neck guitar that he used quite often back in his days in the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Of course, John McLaughlin came to prominence early on in Miles Davis's band towards the late 60s. He also spent a little short period of time in the Tony Williams lifetime before forming the Mahavishnu Orchestra in the early 70s, and continued to helm that band all throughout that decade. Also did stuff with Shakti, right? The more acoustic-based stuff. And did the Trio of Doom. Well, I don't want to call them the Trio of Doom because there is another Trio of Doom. But anyway, the acoustic guitar trio along with Paco de Lucia and Al Di Meola, as well as Larry Coryell took part in that, and Borelli Legren took part in that, right? There were various players in and out, but the original trio was John, Paco, and Al. And yeah, and of course, lots of collaborations over the years with lots of other great jazz musicians and fusion musicians. And he has had his own, John McLaughlin's own band for a number of years, lots of solo albums. So he's been pretty consistently busy all throughout his life, all throughout his career. An amazing player who technically a great player, great writer and arranger, and just, you know, one of those guys that even at this age can just absolutely blaze. And whether he's doing more rock-based stuff or straight jazz or fusion or acoustic, it doesn't really matter. Whatever he does, magic happens. So John McLaughlin, and, you know, picking the 3 albums, again, kind of tough, sort of, but not, because to me, there's specifically 2 albums that had to be in my list. And then I'm thinking, well, do I do Tony Williams' Lifetime Emergency? Do I do Jack Johnson? Do I do Bitches Brew? Do I do any of his more recent stuff? There's some great stuff. Do I do the guitar trio stuff? So let's just go through the 3 albums, right? So where it all started for me, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, The Inner Mountain Flame. This is the album that turned me on to John McLaughlin. Dave Giletti turned me on. So nobody knows who Dave is, but Dave Giletti was my next door neighbor, friend of mine back in the day. He was total deadhead, and invited me into his apartment one afternoon. Neither one of us had class at college, and he's like, "Oh, I want you to check out this. I know you're into all that, metal guys, the shredder guys, and all that kind of stuff." Because I was a big Yngwie fan at the time, into Blackmore and Iommi and Gary Moore and Schenker and all those dudes. He goes, "I want you to hear this band and this guitar player." So we went into his apartment and he played this album for me, and I was like, my jaw just dropped on the floor. I was like, "What in the world is that?" And I've been a changed man ever since. So he opened my ears and mind up to stuff like this, which I had never listened to before. And the world of John McLaughlin, specifically the Mahavishnu Orchestra, was from right at that moment. Boom, I was a fan. And yeah, his playing is absolutely amazing on here. Meeting of the Spirits, Dawn, the acoustic stuff, the electric stuff. This rocks. It's raucous. It's progressive. It's avant-garde. It's beautiful. Dance of the Maya, Vital Transformation, all sorts of great tracks on here. His tone is just so raw and fiery and aggressive at times. Just absolutely amazing. And then, got Billy Cobham and Rick Laird and Jan Hammer and Jerry Goodman, all these amazing virtuosos, crazy stuff. And it would continue with their second album, Birds of Fire. For me, maybe not quite as mind-blowing as the debut, but it's just right behind there. There have been times in my life where I've kind of said, this is my favorite of the two. In more recent years, I kind of go with Intermounting Flame all the time, but I know a lot of people who like this one even more. It's hard to argue that, right? The title track just busts out of the gate, man, and McLaughlin is just gurgling and burbling and just the molten guitar tone just bursting out of your speakers, man. So good. Miles Beyond is so good. You got Sapphire Bullets of Pure Love, quick little intro that leads into Thousand Island Park. Thousand Island Park is great. Good funky stuff on here too. One Word is terrific. Sanctuary is so good. I mean, it's just not a bad track on here, or that one either. So those are two easy picks. Then from there, it got a little difficult. I was weighing a lot of things, but ultimately I decided to go with something that at the time was never released, but it came out many, many years later. And it was basically the third album that the original lineup of the Mahavishnu Orchestra was working on before they broke up. And it came out much, much later as the Lost Trident Sessions. Now, we did get a few of these tracks on the Between Nothingness and Eternity live album, recorded live in Central Park, which did come out after Birds of Fire. But of course, by the time, that came out, the band was already pretty much broken up, and all the songs that they played on that live album were not on any of the two studio albums that came out before it. They played those and a few other tracks culled from the first two albums in a later box set, then released kind of like the part two of Between Nothingness and Eternity, which had the rest of the show live from Central Park in New York City. But that's the story for another day. But basically, all of the studio recordings remained in the vault for many years, and now we have that with the Lost Trident Sessions, which is basically Mahavishnu Orchestra Mark I, the third album. Right. So, because of course, for their actual third release at the time, he would put together a new band with Narada Michael Walden and Jean-Luc Ponty and different sound, different band. Anyway, story for another day. But the Lost Trident Sessions is amazing. It's got Dream on here, the Trilogy Suite, Sister Andrea, I Want Pink Tones, and John's Song. John's Song is absolutely just pure fire. But Dream is great. It's just amazing. And to think that, if you know the history of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, you know that the guys, they were just not getting along and there's all this friction and whatnot. But you listen to this and you're like, my God, that's, the perfect next album after these two. And if they would have released this at the time, it's just the next great Mahavishnu Orchestra album, but yet they shelved it for a million years because the lineup had split up by that time. So yeah, just crazy. In the end, it all worked out for us, the fans, but amazing stuff on these three albums. As far as my favorite guitar solo, this was near impossible. I went back and forth. And ultimately I was kind of like, all right, let's just not overthink this too much. And I just decided, let's just go to my favorite album from John and from this band. I'm going back to the Intermounting Flame, and I'm going to go with the Noonward Race. It's frantic, it's crazy. His solo is just absolutely blazing and full of fire, and his tone is just raw and just furious and I can't even use words to describe McLaughlin's tone and playing on this album. It's just ferocious. That's the one I was looking for. I knew it was an F. Furious was not the one. Ferocious is what I was looking for. So yeah, I'm going to go with the New Race. I just think it's absolutely incredible. I could have gone with Meeting of the Spirits because the solo on that is amazing too. There were a couple solos from Miles Davis and Jack Johnson that I really like a lot. He does some blazing stuff on the Tony Williams Lifetime Emergency album. But I don't like his tone nearly as much on that record as I do on this. I think his kind of distorted, jagged, like just really raw tone on this album, is more akin to what I like, but from him. But yeah, but you can go with anything. I mean, he's done some amazing and gorgeous acoustic solos on many recordings over the years too. So there's just so much to choose from. But yeah, these are my three favorite albums. Technically the first three Mahavishnu Orchestra albums. Like I said, even though this wasn't officially released at the time, this is the de facto third album from this lineup, from the first lineup. So those are going to be my picks from Mr. John McLaughlin. Let us know what you think of John down in the comments below, as well as list your pick for today. Pick number 13. We'll see you tomorrow for number 12, the final dozen. Here we go. I might as well announce it now. So the October show, morning show, the daily show, I've been wanting to revisit it for a long, long time, and I think now's the time to do it. So we talk a lot on this channel about the great debut albums, right? So I'm going to do, for the 31 days of October leading up to Halloween, here in the States anyway, it's Halloween, I am going to rank my 31 favorite debut albums of all time. And again, it's going to cross any genre of music that I like, right? You guys can do the same down in the comments below. So start thinking about it now, because we're at the final 12 days of the month of September. Our 31 favorite debut albums of all time, ranked starting on October 1st with pick number 31. Going to work my way backwards, and we'll get to number one. So it's another massive undertaking. So, years ago, I did years ago, God, this stuff I did on the channel years ago, like these solo shows back when the infancy of Sea of Tranquility, that I'm looking to possibly revisit once again, because a lot of time in between. And your taste change a little bit, and things that get introduced to new music, blah, 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 blah. So I did a video a long time ago where I just talked about some of the great debuts of all time. I didn't really rank them to my knowledge, and it wound up just being, just naming all sorts of stuff. So now I'm actually going to rank my favorite 31 debut albums. So that's coming up starting October 1st. So stay tuned for that. That should be loads of fun. And we'll see you in just a little bit. New album review day, of course, here on the channel. Probably only going to be a couple of them. As you know, I got a lot going on in my personal life, dealing with Dad and his situation. So we got him moved into a rehab facility, and he's probably going to be there for a bit. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth, taking Mom there and whatnot. And my time is going to be kind of limited a little bit. So you may see a little bit slower output from me on certain things, but I'm going to still try to deliver all the normal stuff that we do. So as best as I can. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on here on my end. So anyway, this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, and our Cameo page. And the join button should be there too, as if you want to join up as a member here on the channel. That's another way to contribute. It's probably a little easier. And either way, there's options. And thank you all for your participation and support. Greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you soon here with more stuff. New album reviews coming up at you today. Till then, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you tomorrow. Monsters Den tomorrow. Friday morning at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff. Professor's Picks with Ken Gold, and UK Connection on Saturday, ranking the albums of Vanilla Fudge on Sunday. So lots happening still, and we'll see you each and every day here in the morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with favorite guitar players. Till then, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.